It always leaves me profoundly unsettled, this Torah reading, this story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Here we have the story of a father who woke up early in the morning and set out with Isaac on a journey up a mountain. And the two walked in silence. Abraham avoided Isaac's questions with evasive answers. He believed with all of his heart in a divine command demanding the unthinkable, and he was willing, without question, to follow that commanding voice. Abraham's future, his everything, is bound upon that altar. And he lifted his hand, he casted it forth, clutching the knife over his boy as it all hung in the balance. And you can feel the tension in the moment. I imagine if our ancestors read this Torah like a script, they would gasp as they saw an actor lift a knife-wielding hand in the air, not knowing what would or could happen next. And every year I feel the tension in the story as I imagine that hand held high above. It's interesting that this expression, to lift one's hand, it's an idiom that has two potential meanings. On the one hand, it can be read as referring to a violent act against another, but to lift one's hand can also be thought of as a statement signifying help. For example, we might ask our friends to lift a hand to help with something heavy. Sometimes we lift our hand to help provide a future. On August 30th, a little over 2 weeks ago, I lifted my hand too. But I lifted my hand to affirm my future in this place that I love, America. It was on that morning that Lauren and I loaded the kids into the car and headed to the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service Center. And as we walked down the path, we saw people leaving with big smiles on their faces and American flags in their hands. We walked into the building, we went through security, and received congratulations as we waited for the oath ceremonies to begin. And finally, we were asked to enter a room, and under the watchful eyes of my children and Lauren, and standing next to many other Arab citizens, I raised my hand and said the words that new citizens have been saying for more than 220 years. I hope my children always remember that moment. It was very moving to look around the room and see smiles and joyous tears on the faces of people who had all come to that moment in their own way, lifting their hands to join together with all Americans to sustain and help build upon this great nation. And as I lifted my right hand, much went through my mind and heart. In the 20 years that I've lived in the United States, I've made close friends, studied to become a rabbi, served two great congregations. I met and fell in love with Lauren, who's a child of this nation, and the two of us have built a life and a family. There's so much about this great nation that I love and respect. In addition to the people and relationships I've made here, my experience is also shaped by ideas that are deeply rooted in our Jewish past and the founding principles of America. These ideas are very important to me as a Jew, and I also hope to all of you. So when I raised my hand, my mind thought back to times and events that happened long before I was even born, back to the 17th century. We tend to glorify the past. We watch Fiddler on the Roof and long for Anatevka, as if it were an idealized and fantasized place and time filled with magic, unity, and we could say it together, tradition. But the shtetl, or the village, in that great play glosses over a truth. For the shtetls of the past were neither perfect nor beautiful. We might forget that the shtetls were just the rural version of ghettos. Just like the cities where we were forced to live away from the rest of society, we were forced to live in isolated villages away from our neighbors in the countryside. We were restricted in the way we could earn our livelihoods, restricted in our ability to love who we might love, restricted in our ability to befriend anyone we might befriend. Europe, both East and West, was not a land of the free. And our lives at that time teetered on the edge. We didn't know when we'd have to move or from where the next attack would come. Our aspirations were curtailed by a restricted life in a restricted place, and the shtetl and the ghetto provided us with a narrow and limited existence. But that changed when we entered the Age of Reason. In Germany in the 17th century, a spark was lit that led to the Enlightenment. And we owe so much to the Enlightenment and its ideas concerning God and reason and nature and humanity. But what was most important to us as a Jewish people was creating a shared space where we could engage with our non-Jewish neighbors. And through this shared space, it became clear that Jews should have the same rights as everyone else and should be given citizenship, rights that had been denied to us for millennia. And we might take these rights for granted now. But the emancipated Jews of the 18th century seized these new freedoms with both hands and into a world where Jews could now work in any job that was once off limits to them and into a life that had been hidden behind walls. No longer did a Jew have to choose between staying a Jew behind ghetto walls or converting to gain access to the world. Now, as Jews, we could go out into the world without giving up our beliefs, our customs, and our convictions. Our past and the way we live our faith had prepared us for that moment. Since the beginning, Judaism has adapted to meet the needs of each new generation. After the loss of the two great temples, our expulsion from Zion and Jerusalem, our diaspora, our religion adapted to meet the needs of those who adhered to it. And in a new and modern world, it would again adapt to meet the needs of the time. I am proud that my spiritual ancestors chose to leave the shtetl behind and took steps into the modern world. Not only have we benefited from our freedoms, but so too has the world benefited, all that our people have been able to share and give to humanity on their collective journey into the future. Contributions to the arts and literature, science and mathematics, medicine and psychology, and so much more. And I am proud of those early Jewish reformers that understood that this next chapter of Jewish life demanded adaptation and creativity to meet the needs of this new enlightened world. And I'm proud that so many of our spiritual ancestors made their way to this golden shore, America. The first nation founded on the principles of the Enlightenment, a nation that would belong to no religious group alone, a nation where after lifting our hand in oath and solidarity, we would no longer be strangers, a place where we could make an equal claim, equal to our neighbors, that this nation is our home. Let us not take that for granted. I have been dwelling on the convergence between our history, our experience here in America, and Abraham's hand lifted in the balance because, though the Reform movement began in Germany during the Enlightenment, this year, 5784, marks 150 years since the establishment of the first organized Jewish community in America, known at the time as the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, now known as the Union for Reform Judaism. It's been 150 years since Reform Judaism as an organized movement began in the United States, and it doesn't surprise me that our dream of a Judaism that is vibrant, living, and always changing took root in this land of freedom. I want to share with you why I believe that this anniversary is so important and why I believe we must reaffirm our commitment to a Judaism that teaches us to lift our hands to the future and urges us not to lift our hand to cut that future down. As you know, I've always struggled with the binding of Isaac's story. It's unfathomable to me that a father would even consider the sacrifice of his own child, but we do live in a world, and we see it all too often, where theological adherence has led parents to lift their hand or turn their backs on their children, relationships sacrificed on the altar of religiosity. Isaac was bound, his future uncertain, and he was at the mercy of a father caught between tradition and future. For many throughout our history, Isaac's position on that mountaintop symbolized those whose futures were threatened by their courage to defy established norms. Perhaps the binding of Isaac's story offers us not just a tale of a father and a son, but also a framework. And this framework is not confined to the past, it's present even now. And within this framework, tradition symbolically raises a blade above a woman wishing to stand as an equal voice in Jewish leadership, be it as a rabbi or a cantor, or even as someone who wants to read from the Torah. In the same context, tradition raises a blade above a Jew who finds love with someone of another faith, yet wishes to uphold Judaism for their children. And within this structure, tradition raises a blade above the members of the LGBTQ+ community who desire their Judaism to recognize and celebrate their loving relationships and the families that they form. In Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac and his future, Abraham was willing to sacrifice progression, transformation, and evolution for the sake of obedience. But this is not where the story ends. An angel, a messenger of the divine, intervened just in time. And I believe this angel symbolizes the spirit and ethos of Reform Judaism. It's the voice saying, "Stop, do not harm the boy. There's another way." For when Jews of previous generations faced challenges, whether it was the challenge of integrating into new cultures, embracing modern values, or responding to the realities of a changing world, many felt bound, just like Isaac, restricted by traditional worldviews that didn't always adapt or evolve. But Reform Judaism, like the angelic intervention, said, "There's another way." Reform Judaism provides an avenue for Jewish individuals striving to balance a rich heritage with the enlightenment of the modern world, for women who yearned for leadership roles within our spiritual community, for couples where love transcended faith boundaries, and for our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ+ community longing to be recognized and celebrated. Reform Judaism doesn't just untie the ropes that bind us. It gives us the tools to shape a vibrant and resonant future for our faith. Looking at all of you today, I see a beautiful mosaic of our congregation, a tapestry woven with the threads of tradition, modernity, inclusivity, and adaptability. And I'm filled with pride at how far we've come as a movement and as a community. Together, we lifted our hand not to slay, but to affirm our future, now and at several important points throughout our congregation's history. I want to share some moments among many along the way, moments recalled in which I'm proud of Congregation Shalom's history of commitment to modernity, inclusivity, and adaptability. In 1970, Rabbi Pastor of blessed memory invited a young student rabbi to serve our congregation. And this student rabbi was Sally Presand, who later went on to become America's first female rabbi ordained by a rabbinical seminary and the second formally ordained female rabbi in Jewish history. When Rabbi Shapiro became the senior rabbi of Congregation Shalom, it was clear that by 1982, we needed an assistant rabbi to serve the congregation, so our congregation hired Wisconsin's first female rabbi, Dina Feingold. And Rabbi Feingold has served the Wisconsin Jewish community at Beit Hillel Temple in Kenosha for 38 years and will be retiring after a truly wonderful career touching the lives of so many. We're proud of her service to our community and wish her a mazel tov on her retirement. And following their trailblazing paths, our congregation has since employed 6 other female rabbis, all who have enriched the lives of our community with their spiritual teaching. I am proud of this congregation's decision to be the first congregation in Wisconsin willing to affirm marriage between partners of different faiths who take on the commitment to raise their children within Judaism. And I'm proud that Congregation Shalom's clergy was among the clergy who signed on to the ACLU's lawsuit in Wisconsin to affirm same-sex marriage, as we've been committed to providing a safe and affirming environment to all our members and the love that they share through marriage even before the lawsuit prevailed. Not only am I proud, I hope that you're proud. I hope that it fills your Jewish souls. And I want to share with you 2 of my favorite moments that give voice to the importance of your congregation's role in the shaping of a Judaism that belongs to every member of our community. The first was when we were interviewing cantors after our beloved cantor Karen Berman retired. when one young person, after meeting Cantor Perper, whispered to me in a very serious tone, "I didn't know cantors could be men." How far we've come, right, Cantor? Another favorite moment, and this one happens often, is when delegations and individuals from Israel come to visit. Many are deeply touched to witness something different from what they're used to. In Israel, people often feel trapped in a choice between strict orthodoxy and secularism. But here they see children's eyes light up with joy as they delve into the Torah, and they see men and women participating equally and enthusiastically in both prayer and study. It's a transformative experience for them, illuminating a Judaism that aligns with their innermost values and aspirations, and it's something that we take for granted here. But with all things of value, Reform Judaism is not without controversy. And some of the criticism may be earned and some is not. Some might mistake this forward-looking view of a Judaism that is open to all of our people as easy or Judaism light. They are mistaken. Our Judaism resonates with our most profound beliefs and convictions. It does not ask us to compartmentalize or divide our thoughts about the world. There are those who might say, "I advocate for equality, for the rights of all individuals to marry who they choose, to love as they wish, and to shape their lives as they see fit in every other aspect," but they make an exception when it comes to Jewish tradition. Let me tell you, Reform Judaism challenges that notion, the notion that what we believe so profoundly is beyond the realm of one's religiosity. For Reform Judaism embodies a religiosity that seeks integration and coherence, advocating that our Jewish beliefs must fit with our daily lived experiences because they align with our deepest ideas and hopes for the world. It isn't easy and it isn't light. Reform Judaism is a practice for religious life that demands much from us. Personal autonomy isn't easy and it isn't light. The right to weigh and consider the role that tradition will play impacting and uplifting our lives while at the same time wrestling with the role it should play in our future. It's not easy and it isn't light. Blending and considering creative adaptation and openness to the modern world with the wisdom and commandments handed down to us by generations isn't easy and it isn't light. And knowing when to lift our hand, not to strike down the next generation, but to lift our hand to share the load of our greater society, to lend a hand to our shared community for the sake of us all isn't easy and it isn't light. 2 weeks ago, I gladly lifted my hand to take an oath to this country because America provides us with the opportunity to choose a Jewish life of engagement with the world, to live a Judaism not of the shtetl, but of a free people, a people who can make thoughtful choices about their future and their destiny. Here we are not forced behind walls, and neither do we hide behind them. And when we lift our hands, it's to shape the world around us and lift up the generations to come. Here is my oath to you. Congregation Shalom will always balance our rich heritage while adapting to meet the needs of our children. And we will proudly be inclusive of all of the Isaacs of the past and the future. We need a Judaism that is willing to be a light unto the nations amidst a world that is too easily backsliding into intolerance and bigotry and pettiness. A world where too many are cut down for their beliefs, their loves, or their identities. Abraham's hand was poised in uncertainty between a harrowing past and a promising future. Today we find ourselves at a similar moment, our hands lifted not in violence or sacrifice, but in hope, unity, and commitment to a shared vision of tomorrow. We are the bearers of an ancient legacy, but we are also the architects of its future. Our tradition and teachings guide us, but it's our actions, our choices, and the love and commitment we show to one another that will shape the destiny of generations to come. It's in this spirit of embracing this future that I'm asking each of you to be partners in this work, to lift and lend your hands to bear the weight of the generations to come. Think about what lifting your hand means to you. Is it a hand raised in prayer, seeking guidance and strength? Is it a hand reaching out in service, ready to lift up those in need? Is it a hand extended in friendship, building bridges and forging connections? Whatever the gesture, let it be one that embodies the very best of who we are as a community and as a people. Our strength lies not only in our history, but also in our capacity to evolve, adapt, and forge a path forward that honors both our past and our potential. Let us move towards that potential together in this, the 150th year of the Union for Reform Judaism. And may this year, 5784, be one of lifting our hands in unity, love, and hope. And may we ensure that the story of our people continues to be one of resilience, progression, and boundless possibility. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be our will.
May the one who makes peace in the heavens descend on us, and the world will say Amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us and our bodies and our minds. Amen. Amen. Descend on us, and the world will say Amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us and our bodies and our minds. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen, amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Amen, amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us and our bodies and our minds. Amen.
Thank you, Cantor.